Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Welcome. I see some familiar names in the attendee list. That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you could take the time today. I know everybody is probably screen fatigued, so the fact that you're willing to take this short time, will take maybe 45 minutes to run through everything and join us today is greatly appreciated, and I think you'll find it very worthwhile. We're launching a publisher showcase for MOSAIQ and wanted to launch it with one of our favorite publishers, and I'm so thrilled to have Jill here from Lee and Low Books. So I'll do a quick introduction to her, and she'll present, and we'll have Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And I'll let Jill know what questions we have so she can answer those. If they seem really pertinent at the time, she gave me permission to interrupt her, so I might do that, or we'll save them at the end. We'll see how that goes. And then I'll jump over to CurationIQ, and I will show you Lee and Low books in CurationIQ and the metadata around them. So let's get going. This is Jill Eisenberg. She's the Senior Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at Lee and Low Books, and just one of the all-around most awesome people you'll ever meet. So let me go ahead and hand over host here.
Thank you. Hello and welcome. As Jen said, my name is Jill Eisenberg, and I'm the Senior Director of Curriculum and Literacy Strategy at Lee and Low Books. I'm going on my 8th year here. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to share with you more about Lee and Low Books today and our newest titles available on MOSAIQ and the CurationIQ platform. And we're very honored to be MOSAIQ's first publisher showcase. So we will try to set a high bar. All right, before we go further, please let me know if you can see the slide change. You should now see a picture of the Low family.
Yes.
They make the change. Great. Today, we're going to detail our approach, content, and library with a focus on our new releases, which will all be available and currently are available on MOSAIQ's CurationIQ platform. Bit about Lee and Low Books. Lee and Low was founded in 1991 by Chinese Americans Tom Low and Philip Lee. This month actually marks our 30th anniversary. In 1997, Tom's sons Craig and Jason Low joined the company to expand its offerings and reach. As the company is family-owned and independent, Lee and Low makes its own decisions and publishes what it wants. We take risks and turn them into award-winning, beloved classroom classics. We pride ourselves on our diverse staff, leadership, editorial team, and authors and illustrators. Many of our staff are parents or have teaching experience and have a personal stake in the books that we offer all our children. We are inspired and motivated to offer young people the experience of discovering their story in a book, as well as learning about someone different than their experience. We are the largest multicultural and diverse children's book publisher in the country. Our motto is about everyone for everyone, and we've expanded our definition of diversity over the years to include not only racial diversity, but also other underrepresented groups, such as characters with disabilities and LGBT characters. Bottom line, wherever there's a gap in the classroom library, we want to be there to help fill it. Two Books, Children's Book Press, Shen's Books, and Mas Pinata were once all independent, small press publishers or producers of multicultural materials for children and teens. Each approached us to continue their missions and entrusted us to preserve their most beloved titles. We have brought back nearly 100% of the original titles and voices that they offered, keeping titles in print and in classrooms longer than most other publishers. In doing so, we are keeping these titles at the forefront of education, not to be swallowed up as teeny tiny imprints elsewhere, or worse, never to be heard or read by future generations. Not only are we preserving and continuing to share their award-winning backlists, but we also continue to bring out new titles every single year that align to and embody the unique focus of these imprints, delighting their original communities and bringing new fans into the fold. Each of these companies and now imprints uniquely addresses the changing needs of our evolving communities by producing extraordinary multi-ethnic and bilingual literature and nonfiction for children, families, and those entrusted with their care. Our main umbrella imprint is Lee and Low Books, but we do have several others, including Dive Into Reading, which offers early chapter book series in English and Spanish, Children's Book Press, which publishes award-winning bilingual books and spotlights the diversity of the Latinx experience. They were the original multicultural children's book publisher in the United States. Shen's books, which focuses on introducing children to the cultures of Asia, and Two Books is an imprint publishing middle grade and YA or teen books focusing on speculative fiction, science fiction, historical fiction, and graphic novels. To understand our mission today, I want to share one of our most popular and beloved titles, Baseball Saved Us. This was one of our first books. This story was the first ever picture book about American concentration camps for Japanese and Japanese Americans. Baseball Saved Us helped define Lee and Low as a risk taker when it comes to subject matter and set the standard for many of the books that we have published since then. It remains one of our best-selling backlist titles. With that in mind, this leads us to in terms of thinking about what is editorial vision at Lee and Low Books. We are committed to people-centered stories, so not talking animals, talking trucks. Stories centering people of color, not relegating people of color and other marginalized groups to the best friend role or secondary or just people in the community, but really making sure that they're front and center to the story. Collaborating with creators of color and nurturing new talent, really trying to increase the pipeline of both authors and illustrators of color and other marginalized groups in children's publishing. Telling a wide range of stories across many genres. So really trying to take a look at the gaps that we're seeing in diversity across genres, whether it's poetry, nonfiction, high-low, or chapter books or early readers. We really consider and are thoughtful about the cultural authenticity at all stages of the storytelling process. We don't just stop with the text or the prose. We really are considerate of thinking about where is the authenticity in the illustration, the translation, any back matter, who are the cultural and content experts who are engaged with at all steps of the process, as well as what happens after the book comes out. Are there supplemental resources that also need to make sure that they are staying true and accurate and factual to what is happening in the story? And then part of our vision is making sure that these books will continue to stay in print. So as much as we have that commitment to our imprints, we also want to make sure any of our new books coming out, that all of our partners are confident that if they adopt it into their program, into a curriculum, into the classroom directly, that these books will be in print for many, many years. So you won't get attached to them, write all the curriculum around them, and then they go out of print. I'd like to pause to share one of my favorite poems in the poetry anthology, Amazing Faces. I'll be reading the English, but it is also in Spanish. This is by Jane Medina, and it's Me ×2. I read ×2, I write ×2, I think, I dream, I cry ×2, I laugh ×2, I'm right ×2, I sing, I ask, I try ×2. I do twice as much as most people do because most speak one, but I speak two. This little girl's pride in learning and thinking and breathing in two languages is contagious. I think it sets the tone for today's discussion and presentation. She sees her bilingualism, biculturalism as assets, not deficits. It is our hope in every book that we publish at Lee and Low Books that all children see their identity and lived experience as an asset as she does. At Lee and Low, we take very seriously the representation, the accuracy, the rigor, and the thoroughness that goes into every book that we publish. We've been honored to receive awards from the most prestigious award organizations evaluating children's literature and nonfiction, including the Credit Scott King, Puerto Belpre, the Robert F. Seibert Award. We are very proud to have submitted our titles into social studies award lists, as well as the National Council for Teachers of English and for science as well. As part of this, some of the awards that our books have won over the years across our imprints include the Credit Scott King Award and honors both including illustration. We have quite a few titles on the Reading Rainbow selection list. We're beyond excited to have earned a few years ago the Robert F. Seibert Medal for Nonfiction from the American Library Association. And we are so proud to, and humbled really, to share that we are the largest publisher of the largest collection of Puerto Belpre awards and honors is at Lee and Low. And that's something that we take incredibly seriously and are been delighted to see how popular those titles have been across the country and continue to be. We strive to publish award-winning and outstanding children's books across age groups and genres. While progress has been made in authors and characters of color in children's books, the progress is unevenly distributed still. We seek to fill these gaps in the bookshelf, such as culturally responsive nonfiction, poetry, board books, science fiction, and fantasy as examples. So this is definitely something that, as we hear from our partners and customers of what they're looking for, making sure that we're looking at who the voices are, what different perspectives need to be told across age groups and across genres, not just stopping at realistic fiction. Authenticity is paramount to our mission. Our storytellers share unique characters and biographies special to their cultures, countries, and lived experiences, while highlighting universal feelings and themes all students can identify with. In addition to our authors, our illustrators create stories with accurate context and content, often from their own backgrounds. We seek out and select artists from diverse backgrounds who can provide an authentic voice to the story. Artists create the illustrations and fine art with strong influences from their heritage. We work with both established and new authors from a range of backgrounds. We are very active in seeking out own voices stories, but we do also do cross-cultural storytelling. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of our storytelling creation process, we engage with cultural and content experts at all stages from the way beginning, in terms of encouraging our authors to make sure that their research, they've been seeking out the research from the beginning, as well as, in follow-up and in final drafts, and then also making sure that that cultural authenticity is coming through the text, through the language, the translation, where the illustration, the viewpoint there, and making sure that the expertise of the author and illustrators to tell these stories is made very clear to both the award committees as well as anyone looking to bring these books into a curriculum or a program. All of our books do have levels. These are some of the most popular levels that we have available. They are on our book pages, but as Jen will show later, they are on the MOSAIQ and CurationIQ platform. Our books have been submitted to the Fountas and Pennell Guided Reading Program. They also have Lexile and Accelerated Reader levels. Both Lexile and Accelerated Reader also have Spanish levels available for any of the books that have either a bilingual or a Spanish edition. For some of our titles at the youngest levels, there are also reading recovery and intervention levels available, and then many of these have been correlated to DRA. So this is definitely something that Jen can answer any of those questions for you in terms of those levels, but we do want to make sure that on any of these platforms, if you are already subscribed, our books are available there to see those. There are many authors who can break down complex topics for readers of all ages with varying degrees of background knowledge. We are strategic in building a balanced collection to meet the needs of schools and your customers. We offer stories that explore general diversity and celebrate the universal human experience, but we also seek to provide students with stories where a child's race, family structure, gender identity, and disability is an integral part of the story, but not the main part or sole reason for the story. So we definitely want to make sure that as you're thinking about what part of role that you want, cultural responsive literature nonfiction to play in your program, how paramount or centered to the overall unit or topic should it be, and helping recommend titles that can fit that program, looking at the overall text set that you're building or the overall goals that you have for that program. Lee and Low Books is committed to publishing children's books that are inclusive, meaningful, and relevant to young readers, and to supporting educators, teachers, librarians, and caregivers as they help children make connections between our books, their lives, and the outside world. I want to take a chance to meet some of our characters. We are focused on promoting lived and shared experiences of cultures and people who have been historically underrepresented or misrepresented in children's literature, while also focusing on promoting intercultural and cross-cultural awareness for children of all backgrounds. In addition to global set books, many of our books are set in America and show kids being kids. Stories that really center the challenges that kids universally are trying to overcome, making friends, changing schools, welcoming a new sibling, and really trying to highlight, stories that are focused on joy, not just stories about overcoming oppression. To reach all children and recognize their full identities and the intersection of their identities, we work with our authors and illustrators to tell stories with protagonists in rural, urban, and suburban settings, making sure that we're not just showing characters in their own bedrooms with big backyards, but also showing apartments and different homes, city settings, Houston and Los Angeles versus New York City. From two-parent heterosexual families, for two-parent same-gender families, single-parent-led households, or single child and multiple siblings, adopted families, multi-generational and grandparent-centered families, showing characters and their family members who are both able-bodied or differently abled, and may identify as either single race and ethnicity or biracial and multiracial. Our characters and their families, we really seek to make sure that again and again we are capturing the diverse American and global experience of childhood today. A bit more, I wanted to really highlight when we think about, creating these programs that are going to feature different communities and voices, that, when we think about this cultural authenticity, that we're really trying to make sure that we maybe are telling one story from a community, but not trying to take this story and have it represent an entire community. So as we deep dive into taking a look at, books featuring Latinx families and characters versus African-American or Black characters and historical figures, that we're looking at a diversity of experiences within a culture or community. So for example, this slide is featuring stories with Latinx, either characters or historical figures set in a contemporary setting or a historical setting, really trying to show that the range of diversity of experience is not just going to be one story. So for example, we're going to have, Mexican-American characters set on the border of Mexico and Texas versus having students like Ana Maria Reyes, who is Dominican and is living in New York. So really trying to say that this one story about Latinx is not just say all the immigration stories, but really trying to show that there's a lot of nuance and different experiences even within one community. Now I'm going to take this chance to, in the next couple slides, to just highlight some of the new releases that we have coming out that are available on the MOSAIQ and CurationIQ platform, that we're really excited to share with all of you. The first book is The Electric Slide and Kai. Kai here, he lacks rhythm, and therefore he does not have a fun dance nickname that his grandfather gives everyone in his family. So when Auntie Nina announces that she's getting married, Kai here works very hard to improve his dance moves so that he can earn a fun nickname from his grandfather. And this is just an incredibly joyful story about a family and celebrating, an event when we were all able to get together for weddings in person, allowing kids to see, just a family having a joyful moment. The underlying message of familial closeness and perseverance serves as a foundation for the humor of the story. It's an all-around wonderful book that just inspires laughter and perhaps even a little dancing, and really will have a lot of fun connections for kids who, whether they know the electric slide or not. Another story that I'm excited to share is from our Confetti Kids early reader series around, first grade. The newest one, very, very timely, is The Protest, which is led by the main character Lily with her friends. It is set in New York, although it is not explicitly said. Lily and her friends are working hard to save their community garden. Lily is sad to learn that their community garden will be demolished to make way for a parking lot. Lily organizes a protest with her whole group of friends. And this is an incredible addition to the overall series, but now more than ever, it gives concrete ways of how kids can participate in civic engagement, as well as what kids can realistically do at a time, even when they are quote unquote kids. So it's not something that you need to wait to be a grown up to make your voice heard, and how you can have a positive impact on family and community. And so it's been neat to see how well received this has been, particularly in the time that we are living in. Now, one of my personal all-time favorites here is When the Shadbush Blooms. Lee and Low revived this beautiful Own Voices story, which looks at the seasons experienced by the Lanai Lenape people. It was actually originally published in 2007 by Tricycle Press, but it fell out of print. But this was a really popular title in classrooms, and we were just excited to be able to bring it back. And that came out this year. It's a multi-generational tale which unfolds on these double page spreads. And on the left page, it'll show a family's great-great-grandparents engaged in activities with their children that mirror those unfolding during the present day on the right. An entire year is depicted with time marked as the Lenape traditionally have observed it through the telling shifts in nature and through activities that the Lenape people associate with specific times of the year. This amazing integration of the past with the present gently but powerfully shows the enduring power of tradition and history, while also highlighting the cyclical aspect of nature. It also includes a very informative back matter at the end, provides more detail on the Lanai Lenape people, seasons, and culture, both in the past and today. This is an incredible, enriching offering, especially when Native and Indigenous history and culture can often give many students the impression that Native Indigenous communities existed long ago. They're not part of our communities today. But having a book like this really helps bridge that history and show that our Native Indigenous people are part of our communities today. They're still very active. They're still here. They're still engaging in some traditions, but also, participating in our communities today. One of the most highly additional titles I'm excited to share about today is Shiruko, and this has won some of the most starred reviews already and awards already for this year. This is an inspiring bilingual story of Julio Citelo, the first indigenous archaeologist of the Americas, and he's an important figure of Peruvian history. When he returned from his studies at Harvard and in Europe to Peru, he was an amazing archaeological discoveries for his people, and ultimately became the director of the Museum of Anthropology in Peru. And he accomplished his greatest wish, which is to preserve Peruvian culture along with the rich heritage and history of the indigenous people who created it. This is by Monica Brown, who is the award-winning author of Marisol McDonald series. This book really seeks to highlight the family, the ancestors, the moments, beautiful and dark from the history of Peru and inspiring events of Shiruko's own life. It is a bilingual story, Spanish and English, and provides detailed information that will really encourage young readers to want to learn more and inspire young archaeologists to be. A very detailed afterword, illustrator's note, author sources provide additional information at the end of the book. Another really impactful book that we have brought out recently is called I Remember, Poems and Pictures of Heritage. This was curated by poet Lee Bennett Hopkins and is actually his last children's poetry anthology before he passed away. So this is a book that is very near and dear to both our editorial team as well as to Lee and Low staff. This is a collection of poems and illustrations sourced from diverse creators of color, both authors and poets, as well as illustrators. Each double page spread captures a childhood memory of these outstanding poets. The artist that's paired with poem welcomes the readers into the expansive space of youth and memory. There's brief statements by each creator accompanying their contributions. What's neat about this book is it ends with a wonderful section of both the child and the adult photos and bios of all of the artists and the poets. So it really inspires putting names to faces for youth to see that people of all cultures can become accomplished artists. It is a perfect addition to the bookshelves of culture, poetry, and art. Now, those were highlighting a lot of our picture books. I want to take a moment to also highlight our books at the middle grade and YAN for our secondary grades. One of the most well-received book this past has been Indian No More. This was the winner of the 2020 American Indian Youth Literature Award for Best Middle Grade Book. It was also recently chosen as the 2020 Global Read Aloud. This focuses on a girl who is Umpqua living on the Grand Ronde Tribe Reservation. 10-year-old Regina, featured here, this is the only home she's ever known, but the federal government enacts a law that says Regina's tribe no longer exists, and Regina becomes Indian no more overnight. Even though she lives with her tribe and practices tribal customs, and even though her ancestors were Indian for countless generations, In this moving middle grade novel, drawing from Umpqua author Charlene Willing McManus's own tribal history, Regina must find out who is who who she is, what is her identity, is she Indian, American, both, neither, and will she and her family ever be okay? So this is a story that we do find to be incredibly relevant to today in terms of how kids identify in terms of citizenship and what makes their identity unique to them, as well as something that how they present themselves. Magnolia Sword for older readers. This is the first own voices retelling of the Mulan story by the award-winning Sherry Thomas, who was born and raised in China. There are rich cultural references, intricate political scenes, and thrilling elements really distinguish this Mulan retelling from many of the others that are out there. We're also excited to share Stone River Crossing. Tim Tingle, who is an Oklahoma Choctaw, he expands on his 2000 picture book, Crossing Bachito, in this immersive tale of friendship between people on opposite sides of the Bachito River in 1808. Based on oral histories of Native Americans helping enslaved people gain their freedom, the novel focuses on Lil Mo, a boy enslaved on a Mississippi plantation, whose accidental meeting of Martha Tom, a Choctaw girl, brings about his family's escape. Tingle's complex novel offers valuable insights into a rarely told history and is an incredible addition to the picture book that is very popular in classrooms. And then one of our newest titles coming out this year that we're really excited about is Boy Everywhere. This chronicles Sammy, a boy from Damascus, Syria, and his family's harrowing journey and struggle to settle in the United Kingdom. Forced to sell all their belongings and leave their friends and beloved grandmother behind, Sammy and his family travel across the Middle East to Turkey, where they end up in a smuggler's den. From there, they cross the treacherous waters of the Mediterranean, manage to fly to England, only to be separated and detained in an immigration prison for a crime of seeking asylum. The transition from refugee to immigrant in a new life is the greatest challenge Sammy has ever faced. It is based on the experience of real Syrian refugees, and this thoughtful middle grade novel is a rare book to delve deeply into the year-long crisis. Portions of the proceeds of this book have been used to benefit Syrian refugees in the UK already, and to set up a grant to support an unpublished refugee or immigrant writer in the United States. Sammy's story is one of survival, of family, friendship, bravery, longing, and showing that Sammy and his family's experience could be any one of us. Overall, taking a look at this as you think about where books like this belong in your program or in your classroom collections, and with your customers, really thinking about, oftentimes our books can be used to, update current programs and curriculum. If there's going to be an overhaul, we're starting afresh and new. But oftentimes, if there are standard classroom classics or beloved titles already being used, or books from other publishers, thinking about how can we also provide more contemporary, culture responsive viewpoints, perspectives, voices. How can our books help supplement and complement the work that your team is already doing? We are the only children's publisher solely dedicated to diverse and multicultural children's literature by and about people from diverse backgrounds. Our books embody our commitment to diversity, literacy, and community. Lee and Low Books is committed to publishing children's literature and nonfiction that's inclusive, meaningful, relevant to young readers, to supporting educators, teachers, librarians, parents, caregivers, as they help children make connections between our books, their lives, and the outside world. I'm going to turn it over now to Jen, who will take you all through MOSAIQ and the CurationIQ platform.
Thank you so much, Jill, for doing that. That was amazing. And it really shows exactly why I wanted to do this. And especially with everything that you invest in the content and developing all the representation and the characters and the settings. I just feel like we're made for each other, because the metadata that we put around, and you guys do an awesome job at metadata as well. So it really helps to pull that out. But I do want to check real quick and make sure that we have any questions. Let's see. Okay. It says, based on what was shown here, it seems like the books are focused mainly on lower grades.
Great question. So right now, I did show most of our titles here for this presentation on the elementary school grades, but we do have a very robust library of over 1,000 titles that go from birth and age 5 all the way up through grade 12 and beyond. So if there are particular topics that you reach out to Jen for, we can absolutely make sure to connect you with those titles for second for secondary grades.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for Jill? Yeah. I would just take that as you were very thorough. And you were. So if there are any questions afterwards, please do reach out to me or Jill. Reach out to Jill directly for anything around questions for classroom, or especially like what you showed at the end. If you're looking to find pairs to certain books that you have, or you're looking to expand out your library based on certain things you have to make it more culturally responsive, Jill is the person to help you do that. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with her. So let me show you too, and we can look at some of the upper grade or middle grade books. Oh, one second, we got another question brewing. While that's coming up, I'm just going to let you know, this is CurationIQ. If you haven't used it, I know I saw a lot of familiar names, but if you are new to it, you just go to CurationIQ.com and you'll register for an account. It's a name and an email to sign up, and then you can log into the platform. Okay, perfect. Do you have a variety of search term for diverse books? Yes and yes. Like I said,
Perfect for MOSAIQ, right there. There we go.
Talk about your website as well.
Go ahead. I mean, if you want to show on MOSAIQ, because I think this is going to be, this is a fantastic term to take a look at the CurationIQ platform.
Okay.
We do on our own, on leonlow.com, we do tag all of our books with a lot of different terms. Having said that, as a publisher, we've been beyond impressed with the sensitivity and the rigor and the thoroughness that the MOSAIQ team has done in additional tagging. Publishers are very protective of how their content is portrayed, as well as how it is searched for, and to see what the MOSAIQ team has done in terms of even adding different trigger warnings, maybe things that we hadn't considered before. We have absolutely learned and taken a lot away from what their team is looking for. I mean, they're really thinking, putting their thinking cap on and their lens of what you all are on the lookout for, or what limitations you may have, of what will work and what won't work. And so, yes, I think as Jen's going to demonstrate here, just the beyond even just the overall categories of diversity, really diving deep, you can really get very specific.
Yeah, absolutely. But your website is very great on metadata as well. I don't always see that with publishers, so I do want to mention that, not to steer you away from that at all. But real quick as well, before we move to showing you the metadata, which I promise I will here, there was a question for you, Jill, on new nonfiction offerings, particularly expository writing.
Excellent. Yes, we do actually have quite a few new titles that highlight expository writing and nonfiction. We know that has been a big gap, as we mentioned, in terms of around genres of really celebrating both communities and having culturally responsive pieces. So in terms of around the secondary grade, if it's either secondary grades or elementary grades, I can provide that list to Jen to share out. And a lot of the books that we create in terms of when they do have expository nonfiction, we provide a way to have multiple different genres within a book too, and having those excerpts that can be extracted from that. So that's definitely something I can share with Jen after this.
Excellent. All right. So you would just go up to publishers and just skip everybody else here, and you'll just go right on down to Lee and Low. And this is their publisher page, a little bit more about them. There's this excellent session that they did about a year or so ago. You can watch this full video here. I just embedded it about representation. I thought it was really important to include. And then as well, if you'll come down here, there's links that go out to Lee and Low's site. This is the link that goes directly to all of their learning resources, which they have endless amounts of. And then you can load all the Lee and Low books right here in CurationIQ. And let me move my chat bar over here so I can see. Okay, so we do have all of the licensable Lee and Low titles, and they are fantastic about getting stuff to us very quickly as soon as new books come out. the electric slide and Kai right here. So as soon as these are also new up here and what we believe. So they get those to us right away. So it's a great way to see books as soon as they have them. And you can see some of the metadata filters over here. So yes, this comes from the background of being in education and licensing. I've worked with passage finders and I've done passage finding. So that's how the whole taxonomy came about. So like I said, these things really work well together because Lee and Low has invested so much into so much thoughtfulness into the characters and their ethnicity, right? Everything on through their settings and their authors and all of that. This is a way that we can really dig into it with the metadata and find what you need. So we have things like, of course, the asset categories. So if you are looking for particular young adults or intermediate readers, that's one way to jump into it. We tag for author craft. So if you are looking for, among other criteria, to show a teach point of view or symbolism, that's one way you can dig into it. We do tag for author origin. And this is one of the most diverse lists you'll see for any of our publishers. So this is just incredible here. Content area. These are all long form because that's how we tag the books. And there's your reading levels for F&P. So if you are looking for a particular reading level, you can use the filter that way. And of course, these can be layered. And genre, grade levels, languages. You see that's pretty diverse too. And then of course, Lexiles. And here's your main character ethnicity and main character gender. So if you are looking for a book where you want particular representation on top of all the criteria, that's what I most commonly experience with passage finding. You want to have a complete representation, just like the balance that goes into any publisher's library. The educators, when they're building a program, are weighing everything to make sure that the representation across gender and ethnicity and everything is equal. Somebody asked me to open up the illustration rights filter. Let me just pop up to that. So sorry. Let me see. I should close these out. So yeah, a lot of the illustration rights are available. And I would just have to check these ones that would say some of them are limited to make sure that that is indeed correct. So we're about 3 years old. Lee and Low was one of the publishers that came on with us from the beginning. And we've not had any, I can't think of one time we ever had anything that was limited as far as rights availability for any of the educational licensing that we've done. So I don't think there would be any concerns there. And we go back here. We also flag for STEM and SEL. You do have, it looks like an exemplar text in here as well. I probably need to update it. There's probably more than one.
Yep.
But yeah, and then we also flag for multicultural representation, art, or both. This is because there could be a universal picture book, especially in those lower grades. And then you want the art to be representative. So we want to make sure and capture that. So when it's multicultural text or both, that means it's implicit in the text. And then we probably don't have too many photo rights, but photo rights will be about the same. We could discuss those on any particular occasion that you're interested in a title. And text rights as well. And then text structures and features. So this is great because you put, like you mentioned, from the back matter, putting in all the extra stuff. We have timelines or additional references, author's notes, and all of that stuff. We do tag for all of that. So it will be, that was particularly for biographies. We find that that's the most common. When you have a biography, they want it to have a timeline. So yeah, I can show you any one of these books here. That image shows up really odd. Of course, I'm going to pick the one book with the odd image in there when I'm doing this live. But yes, you can read the whole book in here. That's why it's a gated, safe community. And so we can have the whole entire book in here. And you can, of course, jump through the pages because this is all for potential use in educational programs. We also allow downloads of the books. So you'll just request to download it. There's an icon here. There's an icon right out here as well as here. So anywhere where you see that down arrow, you would be able to download the book. That way you can mark up the PDF as you need to show how you're using it. They do license whole books and excerpts. And so that way you can mark it up. Yeah, let me see, I'll show one of the new books as well. Somebody's just asking if it's possible to search more than one publisher at a time. It is that because this result set is all on Landlow, it's not showing it, but there is a search category that will show publishers otherwise. If you click on at the very top assets, that will load all the assets in the system. And then down at the bottom is where it tends to appear in this filter of publishers, and you can. Or if you search on your topic or your genre, that's going to search across all the publishers at once. And there's also, just real quick, because this really, I want to keep this on Landlow, but there are quick searches that you can click and load by grades, by Lexiles. And we also have collections as well, where they're themed collections of books that are across all the publishers. But let's jump into Kai. Yeah, see, this is the way the images, I'm not sure why. I'll have to look into one, why it was a little bit smaller, but that's the way they're supposed to look. But yeah, when you do click on one, before you even open it, I show you how you just click on it and open it, but you'll see all the metadata here. And this really delves into exactly digging into all the investment that Landlow makes into their books, how thoughtful it is, and how it's the way to dig into it and make it discoverable is by having all this metadata around it. So we know immediately this has got to focus on families, it's multi-generational, it's got some celebration in it. We know that it has a sequence of events, the author craft is here, and it contains multicultural art. So the focus obviously is more on the art, and it's not implicit in the text about the ethnicity. So that is that, it's more about the story, and all the rights information is here. So you see all the different books here. So if we look really quick at just one second to pull it up to, and you can do it by genre or by Lexile and stuff too, but you can see the grades here. So there's definitely stuff in here for middle school and high school. So that's one way you can look for some of the content in the upper grades. I think this is a new one, Jill, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is coming out very soon. We're beyond excited about this book. And this is, yes, a middle grade and YA book. Chapter book. So this is one of ours that we're just beyond thrilled. We're actually currently in the process of working on the Educator resource guide for it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so that's a perfect example how lucky we are to have this relationship, because this is a book that's not out yet, but we have the file. So you have special preview access to Landlow's books sometimes.
Yep. And I wanted to add on just a couple things to Jen in terms of both, the Educator resources. So almost all of these books do have Educator resource guides available. If they're not already here on the CurationIQ site, they are on landlow.com, and we can also provide them to CurationIQ to make that simpler for the team to access. But what's special about those is we create these resources alongside with the authors and our in-house editorial team, who are the book experts, and with educators, and possibly also, working with cultural content experts depending on the specific book. And the intent of those is to have those as initial ways for people to consider using books, with discussion questions, activities that as you guys are building with your collections teams, or you are designing curriculum, if you want to start there and work with those, we always encourage people to take a look. I mean, you guys are going to be the experts, of course, of your students, your customers, and the program you're designing, but we hope that those can also be helpful. And I also want to notice, this note that the keywords here are unbelievably thorough and really are very timely. You can already see how quickly, for example, Jen and her team have added in the keyword own voices, which even like 2 years ago was not on many people's radar. if there are terms that you guys are searching for, but you're just not finding what you think might be there, but where it's just not coming up, please let both Jen as well as me know, and we can still make recommendations on books. For example, in addition to Own Voices, trauma informed has become a leading term that people have been looking for, of what books can align to those materials. So, as you guys are on the forefront of creating new content and creating new programs, please let us know, if there are just stubborn gaps, and see if we do have what you actually are looking for.
That's a great point. Yep. And we do search help. So just send us your specs and your deadline. And we're happy to put together collections of candidate material. Because a lot of times we have just an overview, and we do actually try to read, if not read, we kind of speed read all the books so that we have an understanding of what the books are, as we tag them, and all the taggers are also K-12 teachers. So we, to do a search is sometimes advantageous on our end, just because we have such deep familiar knowledge with the content. So yeah, awesome. Are there any additional questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. So I think we'll wrap up. This is recorded, and I did start a dedicated page on my website, licensewithmosaic.com, and then you'll see a tab for publisher showcase series, and we're going to post all the videos there. So if you want to come back to it, or if somebody misses it, you want to share it, just let them know that it's there. If you want a copy for yourself, don't hesitate to let me know. I'll be happy to also send you one. But yeah, it will be available. And with that, thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate it. It was awesome. It's just so great to be able to do this and to work with you. And I know everybody is so appreciative of what you do, and your team, and the books that they put into the world, and so thoughtfully for so long.
Yeah, no, thank you. It really speaks to, the interest for this series. It's been really impressive to see how many people have registered already. And I think to see that, this isn't just something that, one publisher is saying that needs to happen, but there's such a groundswell happening right now at all levels. You're seeing it from the teacher level, and now you're seeing it at the curriculum developer level, of like, how can we really truly create content and programs that are culturally responsive from the beginning. And so we could not do this without the larger community. So it's great. We're excited for the next 30 years. So thank you so much, Jen, for having us today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.